stopping by Global Bakes, and happy World Whiskey Day. I found out this morning that today is World Whiskey Day, so of course my husband and I decided we would do a whiskey tasting for you here on Global Bakes. So this is my husband Jamie, and he's going to help me drink some whiskey today. Say hi.
Hi, this is my wife Tanya, and she's going to drink with us.
I am. So I got out kind of all of the Scotch and or other types of whiskey that we had in our cabinet. It probably looks like this is our favorite type of alcohol, and it really is, but I don't want you to think we are alcoholics, because we really don't drink that often. A lot of this we've had for quite a while. Most of what we have is single malt Scotch. Not to say that blends aren't a good thing. We do have a couple of blends, but a couple of these are kind of special that we've gotten. This is a Glenfarclas 21 that we got last year when we were together in Scotland for a family trip.
From the Glenfarclas distillery.
From the distillery. This is the 21 year. So we kind of save this one for kind of special events. We don't drink this one very often. It is one of his favorites. The Pecan up here in the front is definitely one of my favorites, although I bought that in 2018 when I was in Scotland by myself. And I brought that back for him. It's in a location right next to where we lived when we were in Scotland. We met there in the early 90s, and that's where it all began. So when I was there by myself, I went back to the area where we had rented a house, and I went to the distillery, which we had never gone to, miraculously, when we lived there. So I brought back the Pecan, and we drink that a little bit slowly. That's one of my favorites, though. I also brought back the Edward Hour. This is an Edward Hour 10, and that's a really good one that we like to savor.
So since it is World Whiskey Day, that is kind of a holiday for us, right? For all of you whiskey fans. So it is a good time to bust out this 21 year. So it is a sherry cask finish. It does have some smokiness to it. I really like it. I really wish we could get it here in the States, but unfortunately you can't. So unless you know somebody over there, or you take a trip, once quarantine is lifted and everything gets back to normal, or as normal as can be, this definitely, you should check it out. They've got a lot of great ones there, but this was, it ranged in prices from decent to wow, that's no way I could do that. So I went with, hey, it's my birthday, I could splurge a little bit, let's go ahead and get this one. So I really like this one. Like I said, it's smoky, it's got a little, it is a sherry cask finish, and it's got a little peppery note at the end. So I'm going to start with this one.
And I like a lot of different ones. It really kind of depends on the day. And one thing that I've heard is a lot of people say they don't like Scotch or whiskey. But I think if you don't like Scotch or whiskey, you just haven't tried the right one yet, because I think there's one for everyone. And the difference, by the way, between Scotch and whiskey is only that Scotch is required in order to call something Scotch. It has to be made in Scotland. It has to be aged in oak barrels, and it has to be 3 years old, or 3 years in the barrel at a minimum. Generally, they do go a lot longer, 10 year, 12 year. So we have kind of a lot of different types here. One thing I'll say though is we were really sticking with the single malts, because we kind of thought that single malts were better. I think that, I don't know if that was because we didn't really know any better, but for this last Christmas, Jamie got me this is the Jane Walker, but it's the same as the John Walker, black label. And this is a blend, and it has just the right amount of smoke. I sometimes like smoke, I sometimes don't, but this has just the right amount of smoke right at the end when you're drinking it. That for me, this is pretty much the perfect whiskey I found. This and the Pecan, I would have to go back and forth as my favorites. Some of the other ones, if you wanted to go really smoky, you would go with something from Iowa. You would go with like Lefroy or Lagavulin or something like that. This Isla Storm is another one. So a lot of these little bottles down here are things that I brought back with me and used as stocking stuffers for his stocking. These are mostly from Scotland, but I got every kind of mini bottle that I could and just filled his stocking with them. I also got him some of the Glenrothes. I love these little collector's editions. You can buy, obviously, a regular bottle, and these are available in the States. It's one of Jamie's favorites.
Yeah, $50–$60 for the base version. Yeah. And they've got the vintage that's a little bit more, and then they've got some that go on up from that. It's a good medium range Scotch that you can kind of get anywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, most people start with the Glenfiddich, the Glenlivets. Those are you'll find the 10 to 12 year Glenmorangie, Moray. Those are those kind of entry level. When you're first getting into it, you may stock that with your decanter. We do the $25 a bottle I've already been drinking, by the way. $25 a bottle teachers that we use when we mix, just just to have something like after work or whatever. It's a blend as well, but hey, it mixes well with other stuff. So you'll find that different scotches and whiskeys play well with other things. So price isn't always an indication of quality. So play around, figure out what you like.
And so Jamie's going to show you the Buffalo Trace here in just a minute because he's going to make his favorite cocktail. But two of the ones that we've gotten in States, now this is Stumpy's Old Monroe Pecan Pie flavored whiskey. This is amazing. This is made locally. It's made, is it Columbia, Illinois?
Yeah,
is that where they're at?
Illinois.
So they're
just outside St. Louis.
Yeah, they're just down the road from us, just outside St. Louis. We went to a tasting at an auction and just loved this whiskey. So now it is available in grocery stores and things. Locally, it is an amazing whiskey.
This is very much that kind of finding a...
I can always put a thing in there that I
right.
have an issue.
World Whiskey Day, take 3.
337. So we were talking about Stumpy's. The camera died. Hopefully you got all that, but this is a really good one locally. They also have, what did you say?
They also have a bourbon that I want to try. This is very much a old school. I really get a Prohibition era kind of feel from it. So you figure you got somebody running a still somewhere, hiding out in the woods. You're making something like a pecan pie whiskey. It's very sweet. It's great even just on ice and a little bit of water to help thin it out a bit because it is very sweet. But it's very good, and believe it or not, this is our second bottle. We've gone through this pretty quickly because other people have had it and liked it that much. So
well, and it's dangerous. You don't realize that you're drinking whiskey, especially if you serve it over a little bit of ice. It tastes just like pecan pie, so you'll just keep drinking and drinking. Yeah, we've had non-whiskey drinkers put us down an entire bottle on Thanksgiving.
So Stumpy's, if you're out there, send me some bourbon. So that's another thing. Just like the craft brewing world for beer, a lot of microbreweries have popped up. There's a lot of craft distilleries that have popped up. I know in Illinois, Missouri, and Kansas, kind of our area. I mean, we could go east into Tennessee, but there's a lot of craft distilleries that have popped up that are doing a lot of great whiskeys and gins because there's not a whole lot of difference between the method there. Right. So you can look in your own backyard to find some really good stuff.
So I'm drinking the Glenrothes, but sorry, I had to take a little sip there. It is so good. So this is another one of the whiskeys that we got. This is a special edition that we got when we went on our anniversary. This year we had our 25th anniversary, but last year for our 24th, we took a trip to St. Augustine, Florida, and we went to their distillery. It's an amazing distillery. They make all kinds of different stuff there. I think they had gin and stuff too, and it was a great tour. We tasted a lot of their different whiskeys at the end of the tour, and every one we tasted was good. But this one, when we finally tasted this one, we had to get it. It is a special edition. They only have 400 bottles. Is that what you said?
400 bottles, yeah. 400
bottles, and they label it on the side. We got bottle number 147 out of 400. This was their 4th anniversary special. We are only going to drink this one on our anniversary, though. So this bottle, even though it's our most expensive, we're going to save it for just our anniversaries, which we have a lot of those coming up, right?
You don't look like you've got a 25th anniversary.
25th anniversary?
You sure?
Yeah.
5, maybe.
If you didn't have
5 tops.
If you didn't have the beard, you wouldn't look like you'd been married 25
So the cool thing about this place is they took an old ice house where, an old building where they used to store ice back in the early 19th or early 20th century at the beginning of the 1900s. And they restored the building, turned it into a distillery, but upstairs they have this place called the Ice House, which is a really cool cocktail bar that served a lot of those spirits. So if you're in the St. Augustine area, definitely recommend checking it out because we spent a lot of time there drinking old fashions and Tom Collins, which is another favorite of ours. So.
And part of the time I just walked in and told the bartender, who was amazing, I just said, surprise me, and I kind of told him what some of my favorite flavors were, and he came up with the most amazing cocktails for me. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah. I'm going to let the dog in. Do you want to go ahead and make your old fashioned?
Yeah, I'll start with my old fashioned. So there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to just use a Buffalo Trace bourbon. Not very expensive. You can get it pretty much anywhere. This is a nice bourbon to use for this. You can also use Scotch. if I were to just make it a Scotch one, I'd probably go with my $25 bottle of Teachers here, which you can see you get a lot. Maybe, you know, when it comes to whiskeys, price isn't always an indicator of quality. Sometimes you really go with the flavor. You can get really snobbish about it, especially when you get into the single malts. But don't turn a blind eye. She talked about the blends earlier, and we found that as we went on, hey, blends are pretty good, and there's a reason why blends are popular in the way they exist. So I'm going to grab some ice real quick. Tend to make this over ice. So start out with some ice. Take where's the aromatic bitters? 3 or 4 dashes of that, or 5, depending if you can't count, or depending on how much you've had. Half teaspoon of sugar, which I just did. Then I'll do 3 ounces, which is 2 grams of the Buffalo Trace. Now, there's a couple things you can do here. A lot of places that we go to locally, they'll what's the other, not a maraschino cherry, the blacker cherries that are kind of like the sweeter cherries.
Why are you putting me on the spot here?
I can't think of it. Anyway, I'm going to use a maraschino cherry just to give a little hint of cherry. I think the original recipe doesn't actually call for it, but it's definitely worthwhile.
Adds just a little bit of sweetness, I think, too, in addition to the.
If you're a cherry guy like me, then it's great. So I'm going to use my knife, the end of my knife, to muddle that a bit, break it up some, and then I'm going to add. I need a little bit of water. Ounce of water. Then I've got an orange peel here. So usually just do a twist, or as they say, express it. So you want to just make sure you've got an orange peel without a lot of pith. Just kind of break it up a little bit so that that it does get the oils going. And then usually what they'll do, you'll see they'll run it along the rim of the glass to give that flavor. That's, for me, with an old fashioned, it's very alcohol forward when you first get it, because a lot of that's up there. So let's mix this up. But I like it when I get down near the bottom and I get that really orangey, citrusy flavor. That's usually my favorite way of drinking it. So there's an old fashioned. Cheers.
Well, I have to make my drink now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make you a Scotch Pear. The Scotch Pear is actually a drink that we found. We went to a place called the Scottish Arms, which is a restaurant in St. Louis. And they had something on the menu one time when we were there called the Scottish Pear. And we went back, we had it that one night, I loved it, but when I went back the next time, a couple months later, they didn't have it. So it was on their special menu. So we did a little bit of Googling and did a little bit of testing and tried to make sure that we got the right flavor combination. So you can use a little ice if you'd like. I don't like ice in mine. And this is the cocktail that I use to what do you call it? Now I can't even think.
Win people over?
Yes, and I haven't even had that much to drink yet. So my sister-in-laws who don't like whiskey, they swore they don't like whiskey, they don't drink Scotch. They had one of these, they said they would taste it, and they loved it, and they drank all of my gin and all of my whiskey and all of my pear juice that night. So this is definitely a cocktail for people who you want to try to win over to liking your Scotch. So we are going to start with, you can choose any Scotch you want, but I'm going to start with the gin. Now I use Hendrick's gin. I've got the big bottle because I really like gin as well. I'm going to use an ounce of Hendrick's or whatever gin you've got and want to use. Like I said, if you want ice in there, go for it, but I don't. And then choose your whiskey. I think traditionally the Scottish Pear will use a Glenfiddich 12. I'm going to go with the Johnny Walker Black because I like the smoke right at the end. This just has the perfect amount of smoke for me, so I'm going to use an ounce of that. Throw that in there. I might have gone a little bit more than an ounce.
That was a dram.
Sorry. I like it. I like my Scotch. So, and then I'm going to use, I know this is kind of weird. Our kids are, how old are they? 17, 23, and 25 now. And I'm using Gerber baby juice. But I have a hard time finding pear juice. So this is what I've been using. We actually bought a case of it on Amazon. I don't drink them that often, but it stays good for a really long time. So if you can find other brands in your area, that's great, but we live kind of in a rural area, so they didn't have a lot. This is perfect. So I use about 2 ounces of this, maybe 2.5. For somebody who isn't liking the really Scotch forward flavor, you could go with 3 ounces of that. And then I'm going to ask for the lemon juice and the agave. Yep. So I'm going to use, I like to use the capful. It's really about 1/2 ounce. That's just kind of an easy way for me to measure it. About 1/2 ounce of lemon juice and just a little squirt of agave to give it a little bit of sweetness. And that is all there is to it. Now, if you had ice in there, you're going to get the frostiness on the outside of your shaker whenever it's completely combined. I don't like the ice, so I'm just going to give it a good shake. One thing I will say is, is your glass gets slippery when you have Scotch on your hands. There is my Scotch Pear. Now, if you wanted to do something a little bit different with that, I have these great syrups from this company called Royal Rose that I've been working with, and I've done some recipes for them. They make these organic, small batch, simple syrups. A lot, and they have recipes on their website as well. So a lot of their recipes are for cocktails. Some of it is for baked goods and other stuff. But they have a saffron simple syrup that I absolutely love in this drink. It kind of tastes a little bit like honey. So instead of using the agave, I would use the simple syrup from Royal Rose. They have so many different flavors. They have hot toddy. They have a sour mix. They have, let's see, over here I've got
3 chili.
3 chili.
This makes a kick-ass margarita.
Yeah. And then I've got, let's see, a cranberry spice, blueberry, cardamom clove. I think that's going to be one of my favorites. Kind of a little bit more wintry, but I love them all. And a strawberry fennel as well. But like I said, in this particular cocktail, instead of using the agave, I would use the saffron, which is so good. It's delicious, and it goes really well with this. So you can, oh, I haven't even had any yet.
Yeah. I'm almost done. So let's make some
Yeah. See, as I don't get the smoke when I'm drinking it. It's after I swallow it, and then in the back of my nose I get the smoke.
Lingers, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. That's really good with the Black Label. So those are our 2 favorite cocktails for World Whiskey Day. Do you have any other tips or advice for whiskey drinkers or non-whiskey drinkers alike?
Not really. Yes. Don't forget to like and subscribe to her channel.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to drop a couple of different links for you in the description box below. And also, if you could hit the like button and subscribe to my channel so you can see stuff coming up. And check out the blog. I'm going to have a bunch of new recipes for drinks coming up on there as well. So you can check out globalbakes.com. Thank you so much for watching our video on World Whiskey Day. And thanks for stopping by. Have a good evening. Bye.
Cheers.
Is it going?
Yeah.
How do you know? Okay.
It's not me that needs to know how I.
You know what? Maybe if you were helping instead of scrolling through Facebook.
I've been on Facebook.
No, whatever you were
Global
doing.
Bags, World Whiskey Day, take 2.
Take 2. Hold on. Let's make it look pretty. All right. I don't know. That's good enough. Right?
Yeah, sure.
We'll do the beginning part, but an abbreviated version.
I don't even remember what I said. Whiskey. Whiskey, whiskey, whiskey.
We should probably turn on some Gaelic Storm.